Hi, everybody. I'm Jose Hurtado. I'm leading the second breakout with Hannah O'Brien. So the topic of this breakout is what lunar science, geology, and geophysics is uniquely enabled by Artemis Base Camp. So the leading questions here are, what are the science activities that are possible to study fundamental planetary processes? So this can include everything from differentiation of a solid body to volcanism, tectonics, impacts. The second theme is, are there science activities that are directed to study the lunar interior at different scales, everything from the local or shallow scale to global scales. Theme C is, are there activities that we can think of to study the formation and then subsequent history of the Earth-Moon system? So the history can include the evolution of the interior of the moon, the crust of the moon, the impact history. So each one of these three themes can be touched upon by geology, geochemistry, and geophysics. If you go to the next slide, I've got, just like Ben, some nice illustrations that highlight some of the possible sort of science that can come out of this. Everything from geologic mapping at various scales that you can see up at the upper left, global geophysics. You can see a representative diagram for that down at the lower right. Can focus geophysics on the shallow subsurface or the relatively shallow subsurface to look at things like the stratigraphy in the crust and development in the regolith. And then on the far right, you can see some of the various sort of chronologic and associated geochemical type of investigations that can come out of this. And you can see in the top middle there is sort of one of the focuses that Artemis Base Camp can enable, and that's sort of the human participation in these sort of activities. So if you go to the next slide, just like Ben mentioned, there are some overarching sort of questions. These are actually the same questions that Ben had on his slide. So do these activities require crewed deployment or tending? I would probably add to that, I should have added to that, robotic deployment or tending. What infrastructure is required? And then how do these activities change over time? So for example, some measurements, particularly perhaps geophysical measurements, might be best done without the humans being present. So which ones? Some activities, especially field science activities, might be best done with humans or robotic-human partnership. So which ones? And then how does field science evolve as more and more infrastructure becomes available? So down at the bottom, you can see the same assumptions that Ben had on his slide pertaining to how science activities are going to be enabled by the Lunar Base Camp. So that's my spiel. So hopefully folks will come visit my breakout.